Over the road is Addington Road Pumping Station, officially known as West Wickham Pumping Station. And I was doing some research into the history of waterworks in the area, and I was sent a photograph of the original building here, which was really quite something. Beautiful Victorian design. And they added an engine house in the 1920s, and that kind of enhanced the style of it even further. And when I was doing a bit deeper research and started to look into some aerial photographs, I saw something that piqued my interest. This is the home of Croydon Rugby Football Club. The location they occupy is up the end of that lane, and we can just see behind there we've got the pumping station. But the rugby club have listed on their website some connections with the RAF. In fact, their newsletter is called The Hangar, and two of the teams they run are called the Spitfires and Hurricanes. So putting all that together, I investigated to find out exactly what was going on here and what was the connection to the RAF. So just for additional geographical reference, so this is the A2022. We've got West Wickham, Hayes area that way going into Kent. Swinging around that way takes us into Croydon. I'm going to negotiate my way through these very tall stinging nettles. Wow. It's been a good growing season. Initially my thinking was, could this lend itself in any way, shape or form to an airfield? But it's on a slope. It's on quite a severe slope actually, and I don't believe it would suit an emergency landing ground. This site was the Addington Air Ministry Works Repair Depot. In 1938, a committee was formed to consider the maintenance of airfields in war, and the official brief was to nullify the effect on Air Force operations of damage caused to airfields and installations by enemy attack from the air. So they agreed that it would be necessary to establish pools of labour, materials, to be able to respond quickly to attacks on airfields and to get them back up and running. And the idea was that they would be located geographically rather than assigned to specific commands, i.e. bomber command, fighter command and the like. That was seen as the most pragmatic solution. The other location consideration is that they would be no more than 1 to 2 hours away from an active airfield that they needed to provide support to. Now, approval was given to 25 works repair depots in January 1939, and work started immediately. Addington here was one of the 4 largest depots with 120 men, and there were other large depots at Harlow in Essex, Eastcote in Middlesex, and Ashford in Kent. In early 1940, it was agreed that there would be some sleeping accommodation provided so that the teams could act very quickly to get out there and provide support where needed. So it was all about having that mobility and that urgency of support. There was a considerable quantity of heavy equipment provision. Mobile generating sets, motor-driven petrol pumps. There were excavators, bulldozers, graders, tipping lorries, stocks of sand, broken rubble and hardcore. There was everything needed to carry out essential repairs. Recruitment of personnel took place immediately after the outbreak of the war. Arrangements were made for certain personnel to be available from the industry. The Ministry of Transport moved men across from their agency services, and the remainder was sourced from the Ministry of Labour. Now, before work started in earnest, whilst the resources were allocated to these locations, they weren't necessarily fully occupied, so they were lent out to RAF bases to do essential but sort of non-continuous work. They could be easily called upon should things ramp up. So, August 1940, Battle of Britain. The biggest test that the teams based here and in their other locations would find, because all the airfields in Fighter Command were under constant attack. Now, the location of Addington was quite key to provide support to Biggin Hill, Kenley and Croydon, which were all well within the 1 to 2 hour location distance that I mentioned earlier. They could probably cover Red Hill and at a pinch maybe much further afield. Their main task was to carry out airfield repair work. There would have been personnel at the sites to do some initial repairs, perhaps even some basic filling in of craters and the like. But the guys here, their expertise was in building or rebuilding airfields. So they followed laid out plans from the Air Ministry about exactly how you should pack the materials down, build a very slight surface so that it then settled, because it was essential that the planes in operational duty weren't going to be going over a kind of humpy bumpy type experience when they're taking off and landing. And history shows that this operation was really successful. There was no period where aircraft were unable to take off and land, either at a main site or landing ground, throughout the Battle of Britain. There was always an operational capability. The guys here were going out on site, probably round the clock in some cases, and doing their essential task of getting a proper repair done to make the airfields fully operational again after any attack. Now, after the Battle of Britain, things quietened down somewhat. The Luftwaffe, apart from the odd raid, nuisance raid, were pretty much nullified, and obviously the emphasis of the war shifted to how we would take the fight to the enemy in Europe. And sadly, at Ashford, one of the other large locations, there was an enemy attack, and it actually killed some of the personnel there from the depot. Now today we can still see some evidence of the Addington depot, because the bases used for some of the buildings in that plot act as hardstanding for the rugby club car park. The clubhouse is built on a similar footprint as the Works Repair depot building, using modern map technology and blending with some of the aerial evidence that we have. There's that link. What was there before is now linked to where people turn up and park their car when they're playing rugby or going to events there maybe. So the role that the Addington team provided here was vital, and the proof was in what happened during the Battle of Britain, that we were effective, we were kept operational, and it was in no small part to what these guys did here. It's one of those kind of background roles that is a really important part of the overall machinery. If you like the video, please give a little thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of this type of content, particularly the local history in our area. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.